The Rock and John Cena were finally enjoying a rare day off together. Their schedules were packed with movies, interviews, and travel, so a simple trip to the amusement park felt like a small escape from their hectic lives. The sun was shining bright, laughter filled the air, and the smell of fried food and sweet treats floated across the park. Families wandered from ride to ride, children ran past with ice cream in hand, and street performers added music and life to every corner. The Rock adjusted his sunglasses and smiled, taking in the lively scene. He loved seeing people happy and carefree, and for once he felt relaxed. John Cena, carrying a soft pretzel, laughed at something a child said to a performer dressed like a giant dragon. They were both blending in with the crowd, trying not to draw attention to themselves, but their presence still turned a few heads. Even in casual clothes, people recognized them, and small groups often waved or whispered excitedly as they passed by. As they walked toward one of the park's main streets, The Rock's eyes caught a movement that didn't quite fit with the cheerful surroundings. On a bench near a candy stand, a young girl sat alone, clutching a small red balloon. She was about 8 or 9, wearing a bright yellow dress that contrasted sharply with the worried expression on her face. Her eyes darted around nervously, and her small fingers gripped the string of the balloon so tightly that her knuckles turned white. Something about her made The Rock pause. He wasn't the type to ignore instincts, especially when it came to children. Nearby, a man stood, not too close but not too far either. He was watching the girl, shifting his weight from one foot to the other, constantly glancing around. The way he moved felt calculated, almost like he was waiting for something. The Rock noticed the tension in the girl's posture. She tried to shift away from the man, scooting slightly on the bench, but the man subtly leaned in, talking softly, though the words were too quiet to hear from The Rock's distance. The girl's eyes grew wide, and she looked past him, scanning the crowd as if searching for someone familiar. That was when The Rock knew this wasn't just a lost child scenario. Something about it felt wrong. John Cena, walking a few steps behind, noticed the same scene. He nudged The Rock lightly and whispered, "Do you see that? Something's off." The Rock nodded subtly, eyes still locked on the girl and the man. They had both faced situations where instinct mattered more than observation, and this one triggered that gut feeling immediately. They needed to act, but carefully. Making a scene could scare the girl or alert the man that something was wrong. They slowed their pace, blending in with the crowd while keeping the girl and the man in sight. The Rock's mind raced through possibilities. Maybe she was lost and the man was a good Samaritan, but the unease in the girl's eyes, the stiffness in her posture, and the way the man hovered suggested otherwise. Cena mirrored his concern, scanning the surroundings for park security or staff. The park was busy, which meant help might not be immediate, but it also meant that any sudden movement from the stranger could be noticed if they acted smartly. The Rock adjusted his approach. He didn't want to frighten the girl further, so he stayed at a distance that was close enough to intervene quickly if needed, but far enough to appear casual. Cena walked slightly ahead, pretending to look at a map but ready to step in at any moment. Their training in public appearances, security awareness, and quick thinking from years in the spotlight gave them a subtle advantage. They were calm on the outside, but every muscle in their body was alert. The girl shifted again, hugging the balloon to her chest as if it were a shield. The man spoke to her again, soft and seemingly friendly, but she didn't respond verbally. Instead, she shook her head slightly and looked down at the ground. The Rock's heart sank. Kids don't naturally react this way unless something scares them. He whispered to Cena, "She doesn't know him. We have to be careful, but act fast." Cena nodded, understanding immediately. They continued to edge closer, weaving through the crowd with purpose, but without drawing attention to themselves. The Rock scanned the environment, noting exits, nearby park staff, and other families who could witness if things escalated. Cena's presence added another layer of security. Their size and reputation could be intimidating if needed, but right now subtlety was key. They had to make sure the girl felt safe before confronting the stranger directly. As they approached, The Rock noticed small details that confirmed their concern. The girl's hair was slightly tangled, her shoes dusty, and her hands trembled as she clutched the balloon. The man tried to guide her subtly, pointing toward a less crowded path, but the girl resisted. Every instinct The Rock had was screaming that this situation could escalate if they didn't intervene carefully. Cena kept the man engaged, moving slightly to the side, pretending to ask for directions to a ride. The man's attention flicked toward Cena, distracted for a brief moment. That was the opening the rock needed. He stepped closer to the girl, lowering himself to her eye level. He gave a small, reassuring smile and said softly, "Hey there, are you okay? Did you get separated from your family?" The girl's eyes widened for a moment, studying the rock carefully. There was fear, yes, but also a hint of relief that someone kind and strong had approached her. She shook her head slightly and whispered, "I don't know him." That was all the rock needed to confirm that the situation required immediate but careful action. Cena, noticing the girl's response, subtly shifted the man's attention back toward himself. "Excuse me," Cena said loudly enough for the man to hear. "Can you help me figure out where the roller coaster is?" The man, taken off guard, followed Cena's gaze, momentarily distracted. This gave the rock the chance to gently take the girl's hand and guide her toward a safer, more populated area of the park. The girl hesitated at first, fear still evident in her eyes. But the rock's calm voice and reassuring demeanor helped ease her anxiety. "It's okay," he said softly. "You're safe now. Just stay close to me." She nodded slightly, finally letting go of her fear enough to move with him. Cena stayed close behind, keeping an eye on the man and making sure he didn't follow too closely. As they moved through the park, the rock continued speaking softly to the rock, and John Cena stayed close to the girl, making sure she felt safe as they guided her through the crowded park. The girl's grip on the rock's hand was still tight, but she no longer pulled away. Her eyes occasionally flicked toward the man who'd been following her, but now he stayed farther back, hesitant and unsure. The rock could feel the tension in the air, but he remained calm, moving with purpose while keeping his voice gentle and reassuring. Cena continued walking slightly ahead, pretending to examine a park map, all the while keeping an eye on the man. His presence alone was enough to make the stranger hesitate, but Cena was ready to step in if needed. They had to ensure that the girl felt secure before calling attention from security, and so far, the subtle approach seemed to be working. The girl began speaking in small whispers, explaining that she had wandered away from her parents while they shopped for souvenirs. She said the man had approached her and started asking questions, but she hadn't responded. Her voice trembled, and tears welled in her eyes as she described feeling scared and alone. The rock nodded quietly, listening carefully. He knew that rushing her to talk to security immediately could overwhelm her, so he continued speaking softly, asking her simple questions that kept her focused and calm. As they moved through the crowd, the rock noticed the man making small, cautious movements toward them again. Cena intercepted subtly, stepping between them in a casual manner, asking the stranger for help with directions to a ride. The man seemed momentarily confused, glancing back at the girl but hesitating to approach. The rock saw this as an opportunity to continue moving toward a safe area of the park where security officers were stationed. The girl started to relax slightly as the rock spoke with warmth and patience. He asked her about her favorite rides, what she liked to eat, and little details about her day at the park. Each question distracted her from the fear and gave her a sense of normalcy. She began to smile faintly, still cautious but more willing to trust them. The rock could feel the change and knew they were making progress, but he stayed alert, aware that the situation could change at any moment. Cena continued his role, casually walking near the stranger and engaging him in conversation. He asked questions about the park, pretending to be confused about the location of certain attractions. The man tried to respond, but his answers were hesitant and distracted, and Cena subtly moved him farther from the girl. The rock noticed that the girl's breathing had slowed, and she was starting to loosen her grip on his hand. It was a small victory, but it showed that their strategy of calm, gentle guidance was working. They passed a small fountain, and the rock suggested they take a slight detour around it, moving toward a more crowded area. He continued to talk with the girl about lighthearted topics, like the animals on a nearby ride, or the shapes of clouds in the sky. This simple distraction helped keep her mind off the stranger, and focused on something familiar and safe. She nodded along, answering questions quietly, and even laughed softly when the rock made a playful joke about a duck waddling too close to the fountain. Cena signaled subtly to the rock, "You're," letting him know the man seemed to be losing patience. The rock understood. Their presence and calm confidence were making it harder for the stranger to approach without attracting attention. They were approaching a central plaza where security cameras and staff were more visible. which added an extra layer of safety. The girl glanced up at the rock and he smiled reassuringly, telling her they were almost at a safe spot and that help was nearby. As they neared the plaza, the girl mentioned she thought she saw her parents somewhere nearby. The rock encouraged her gently, telling her to stay calm and that they would help her find them. Cena continued to keep the man occupied, asking him questions about rides and attractions, giving the rock enough time to approach a nearby security officer. The officer noticed their concern and stepped forward, ready to assist. The rock introduced the situation calmly, explaining that the girl had been approached by a stranger and that she needed help getting back to her family. The security officer nodded and positioned themselves to take over safely. The rock knelt down to the girl's level again and spoke softly. He told her that the officers were here to help and that she was safe now. She looked at him with relief, a small smile appearing on her face. She whispered a quiet thank you, and the rock squeezed her hand gently before standing up. Cena, seeing that the man was now hesitant to continue, stepped in to ensure the stranger could not follow. The rock and John Cena knew that getting the girl to a safe spot was only the first step. They needed to make sure the man who had been following her didn't try anything else. The park was still bustling with families, children running to rides, and street performers drawing crowds. But both stars remained hyper-aware of their surroundings. Every glance, every movement mattered. They stayed calm, but their instincts were on high alert. The girl had started to loosen up a little, but fear still lingered in her eyes. The rock spoke to her gently, encouraging her to keep moving with him and Cena. He asked her about her favorite attractions in the park, talking about rides with colorful lights, funny characters, and even a show where dancers twirled across the stage. She responded softly, her small voice growing steadier with each word. Talking about something familiar and fun was helping her regain confidence and trust. Meanwhile, Cena continued keeping the man occupied. He asked questions about the layout of the park, pointing toward attractions as if genuinely curious. The man responded, but his attention kept flicking toward the girl. Cena subtly blocked his path whenever he tried to approach, all without raising suspicion. It was a delicate balance of keeping the stranger at bay while making it seem like a normal conversation. The man appeared uncomfortable now, unsure how to proceed. The rock noticed that the girl was starting to mimic his calm behavior. She walked a little taller, her steps steadier. He smiled reassuringly at her and told her that they were almost at a safe place where she would meet friendly officers who could help her find her family. Each word was measured, meant to soothe and guide without causing panic. The girl nodded, taking small breaths to calm herself. She was learning to trust them, and that trust was everything at that moment. As they moved closer to a more crowded plaza, the rock subtly glanced around for security cameras and park staff. He spotted officers stationed near a central information kiosk and knew that approaching them would provide the girl with immediate help. He adjusted his pace, keeping a gentle hold on her hand while guiding her toward the visible safety. Cena followed behind, still ensuring the stranger could not get close. The man realized his influence was slipping. His glances toward the girl became more anxious and he shifted from foot to foot, trying to decide what to do next. The rock noticed his hesitation and used it to their advantage. He spoke to the girl about the nearby fountain, describing the ducks and the small fish swimming around, keeping her distracted and focused on something enjoyable. The girl's attention slowly shifted, and she began to respond with small smiles and quiet laughter. These moments of lightness were crucial to easing her fear. Cena, seeing the man hesitate, stepped in closer, keeping a casual but firm stance. He asked the man if he could help him find a snack stand, subtly steering him away from the girl and the rock. The man tried to follow along, but Cena's presence and the visible crowd nearby made it clear that any aggressive action would be noticed. For a brief moment, the stranger seemed to realize that he was being watched, and that his attempts to intimidate the girl were no longer effective. The girl noticed the man's discomfort and whispered to the rock, her voice trembling but quiet, that she felt safer now. The rock smiled at her and said that she was doing a great job and that they were almost at the officers. He reminded her that she had done nothing wrong and that it was brave to trust them. Her small nod was a sign that she was beginning to feel secure in their care. They reached the plaza, and the rock signaled to the officers stationed nearby. Two uniformed security staff immediately stepped forward, asking if they could help. The Rock explained that the girl had been approached by a stranger and that she needed assistance. The officers nodded, moving carefully to take over while ensuring the girl remained comfortable and calm. They guided her gently, speaking in a friendly tone, and The Rock and Cena stayed close enough to observe but far enough to let the officers take charge. The Rock and John Cena knew their role wasn't just about guiding the girl to safety. They wanted to make sure the stranger who had been following her could not cause any more fear or confusion. The park was still alive with the usual sounds: children squealing on rides, vendors calling out, music playing from various attractions, and the chatter of families enjoying their day. Amidst this lively atmosphere, the two men remained focused, their eyes constantly scanning for any sign that the stranger might attempt to intervene. The girl's small hand rested in the Rock's, and she was visibly calmer than before, though her wide eyes still occasionally darted toward the man now lingering a few steps behind Cena. The Rock spoke softly to her, telling her about the carousel up ahead, describing the horses with flowing manes and the gentle music that played as it spun. He asked her which horse she would choose if she could ride one, and she giggled quietly, a sound that seemed to lighten the tension. It was a small victory, but it showed that the strategy of distraction and reassurance was working. Her fear was fading, replaced by curiosity and a sense of safety. Cena continued his casual engagement with the stranger, asking about the park and pretending to search for a specific ride. The man followed, unsure, and appeared increasingly uneasy. Cena's towering presence and calm demeanor made it clear that he was ready to step in if necessary, but his voice and approach remained friendly and casual. It was subtle but effective. The man's hesitation grew, giving The Rock enough time to guide the girl to a more visible area near a popular ride, where park staff were stationed and cameras covered the surroundings. The girl looked up at The Rock with a small, hesitant smile. "Are we safe now?" she whispered. The Rock bent down slightly, matching her gaze. "We're getting there," he said gently. "See those officers by the ride? They are here to help. You're doing great, and we'll make sure you get back to your family safely." The reassurance in his voice gave her courage, and she nodded slowly, taking small, steady steps forward. As they approached the officers, The Rock noticed the man glancing nervously around. His movements were no longer smooth or confident. It was clear that he realized he could not intimidate the girl or interfere without being seen. Cena casually stood nearby, maintaining a friendly posture which further discouraged the stranger from approaching. Every step they took towards safety was deliberate, ensuring the girl remained calm and protected. The officers greeted them with professionalism and empathy. The Rock explained the situation, pointing out that the girl had been approached by the man and needed assistance. The officers immediately positioned themselves to take over, speaking gently to the girl to help her feel comfortable. The girl's grip on The Rock's hand loosened as she listened to the officers' reassuring voices, her trust in them growing. Her parents appeared soon after, scanning the area frantically. The girl's face lit up at the sight of them, and she ran into their arms, tears streaming down her cheeks. The parents held her tightly, expressing relief and gratitude. The man who had been following her had drifted back into the crowd, clearly frustrated and discouraged by the attention of both the officers and the presence of The Rock and Cena. The officers ensured he kept his distance, and he eventually walked away, blending into the park visitors. The Rock and Cena stayed nearby just long enough to make sure the family was truly safe, then stepped back, blending into the crowd. They walked through the park, reflecting quietly on what had happened. The day had started as a simple outing, a break from work and routines, but it had turned into a moment of responsibility and quick thinking. They had managed to keep a child safe in a crowded place using calm observation, careful engagement, and strategic movement. The girls' small smiles and quiet laughter echoed in their minds as they walked. They saw the power of patience and gentle guidance, realizing that a few minutes of careful attention could prevent a frightening situation from becoming dangerous. It wasn't just their physical presence that mattered. It was their ability to stay calm, assess the situation, and act with empathy. That combination had made the difference. The park continued to buzz with activity, and The Rock and Cena moved through it casually, enjoying the sights and sounds without drawing attention. They observed families, children playing games, and friends sharing meals. Each scene reminded them why staying aware and caring mattered, even in everyday situations. Their quiet heroism had blended seamlessly into the ordinary rhythm of the park. Unnoticed by most, but its impact was profound. They stopped near a fountain, taking a moment to relax while still keeping an eye on the crowd. The girl's parents had reunited her safely, and the stranger was no longer a threat. Cena glanced at the rock, a small nod shared between them, acknowledging the effectiveness of their teamwork. It was not flashy or dramatic, but it had been enough. Sometimes making a real difference meant quiet vigilance rather than attention-grabbing action. As the afternoon moved into evening, the park's lights began to glow, casting a warm ambiance over the attractions. The Rock and Cena continued to enjoy the day, riding attractions, sampling treats, and interacting with visitors. Yet the memory of the girls' relief and gratitude remained at the forefront of their minds. It was a reminder that everyday moments could carry real responsibility, and that paying attention and acting with care mattered more than most people realized. They watched as the girl laughed with her parents, now relaxed and happy, blending into the joy around her. The Rock and Cena felt a quiet sense of satisfaction, knowing that their intervention had ensured her safety. It reinforced the idea that being attentive, compassionate, and courageous, even in seemingly ordinary moments, could create lasting positive effects. The day concluded with a sense of fulfillment. The Rock and Cena left the park quietly, reflecting on the lessons of vigilance, empathy, and careful action. The girl and her family had been protected, the potential danger neutralized, and the experience had reinforced their belief in the importance of caring for those who cannot always protect themselves. They had turned an ordinary day into a moment of real impact, quietly demonstrating that heroism often comes in subtle, thoughtful actions rather than grand gestures. Even as they drove away from the park, the memory of the girl's relieved smile and the parents' gratitude stayed with them. It was a reminder that the right action, taken at the right time, could change someone's life. Their day off had become more than just fun and relaxation. It had been a chance to make a tangible difference in the life of a child and her family. The Rock and Cena knew that these were the moments that truly mattered. Moments of compassion, courage, and quiet heroism that left lasting impressions long after the day had ended. The girl's parents arrived shortly after, running through the plaza with obvious worry etched across their faces. Her eyes lit up when she saw them, and she ran into their arms, tears streaming down her cheeks. The parents held her tightly, asking if she was hurt and apologizing for being momentarily separated. The girl reassured them softly that she was okay, thanks to the two men who had helped her. The Rock and Cena remained in the background, watching the family reunion. The man who had been following the girl drifted away, clearly realizing that he could not interfere without attracting attention. The officers maintained a safe distance between him and the family, ensuring he left the area. The girl waved shyly at the Rock, and John Cena had spent the day blending into the amusement park, enjoying rides and laughter. But the memory of the girl they had helped lingered in their minds. They knew that the work they had done earlier had already made a difference, but they wanted to ensure that the girl's family remained calm and reassured. As they walked through the park, they kept a watchful eye, aware that sometimes situations could change unexpectedly, and vigilance was essential. The girl had now reunited with her parents, and they were walking nearby, holding hands and keeping a protective watch over her. The Rock and Cena watched discreetly from a distance, making sure the family was not being followed by the man who had been causing concern earlier. The stranger had disappeared into the crowd, but their instincts told them to remain alert. The park was large, with twists and turns, crowds of people and multiple exits, so staying aware of the surroundings was vital. As they continued walking, the Rock gently reminded the girl to stay close to her parents. She nodded and smiled faintly, feeling safe and comforted by the presence of both her family and the two men who had stepped in when she needed help. Cena stayed nearby, casually moving through the crowd, making sure the area remained secure without drawing attention. Their calm presence acted as a shield, invisible yet effective. The family approached a bench near a popular ride, and the parents decided to take a short break, letting the girl rest after the day's excitement. The Rock and Cena moved a few steps away, giving them space while remaining in sight. They observed the girl laughing quietly with her parents, playing with a small stuffed toy she had received from a nearby stand. Her relaxed demeanor was proof that she had regained a sense of safety, and the worry that had clouded her face earlier had melted away. The Rock reflected on the day, thinking about how quickly situations could change. A simple moment of fear for a child could escalate if not handled carefully. Their approach had been gentle, deliberate, and human-centric, focusing on reassurance rather than force. This had made the girl feel secure enough to trust them and eventually her parents. Cena nodded in silent agreement, appreciating the balance between subtle intervention and the presence of authority, which had helped prevent any further danger. Nearby, the man who had been following the girl remained at a distance, hesitant and unsure. He watched as the officers interacted with the family, realizing that any further action would draw attention. The Rock and Cena observed him casually, noting that his body language had changed from confidence to frustration and uncertainty. Their strategic placement and calm demeanor had clearly communicated that the girl was no longer vulnerable. The girl's parents thanked the officers repeatedly, expressing relief and gratitude. The Rock and Cena had already left their immediate view, blending into the park's busy environment, but their sense of accomplishment was quietly profound. They had intervened without creating panic or a scene, protecting a child and ensuring her family's peace of mind. It was a quiet, powerful demonstration of empathy, awareness, and courage. As the afternoon turned into evening, the park's lights began to twinkle, casting a warm glow over the attractions. The Rock and Cena decided to ride one final attraction, reflecting on the day and the impact of their actions. The girl and her parents continued to enjoy their own time, now fully relaxed, laughing and sharing stories about their day. The contrast between the tension earlier and the joy now highlighted the effectiveness of careful, compassionate intervention. The Rock and Cena discussed the importance of paying attention to small details and trusting instincts. Even in a place filled with laughter and fun, moments of danger could arise, and responding with calm determination could make a significant difference. They acknowledged that their approach, combining subtlety, presence, and empathy, had allowed them to help without causing additional fear. It was a lesson in real-life heroism, the kind that didn't need applause but left a lasting impact. As they left the park, they observed families walking together, children excitedly pointing at rides, and couples enjoying their time. It reminded them that every person in the crowd had a story, and some moments required attention, compassion, and quick thinking. Their actions earlier in the day had ensured that a vulnerable child returned safely to her family, turning a frightening situation into one of relief and safety. The girl's parents later approached the officers, expressing their gratitude once more, and the officers passed on their appreciation to the Rock and Cena, who had already moved on. The knowledge that their presence had prevented a potential tragedy was deeply satisfying. It was a reminder that heroism often came in the form of awareness, empathy, and measured action. Driving home from the park, the Rock and Cena reflected on the day's events. They realized that while their public personas often overshadowed everyday actions, the ability to act decisively, observe carefully, and intervene thoughtfully could create real lasting change. The girl and her family had experienced safety and reassurance because two strangers chose to pay attention and act with care. The day's experience stayed with them long after the park. Lights had dimmed and the crowds had dispersed. It was a story of instinct, courage, and quiet heroism, one that highlighted the power of human-centered intervention in moments of potential danger. They had made a real difference, and that difference was enough. The girl, now safe and laughing with her parents, was a reminder that even small acts of vigilance and care could transform a moment of fear into a memory of relief and safety. The Rock and Cena knew that the lessons of the day were simple yet profound. Stay aware, trust instincts, act with compassion, and protect those who cannot always protect themselves. It was a quiet victory, one that would not be broadcast or celebrated publicly, but it left an indelible mark on everyone involved. Heroism, they realized, was often about what you did when no one was watching, and how you made others feel safe, valued, and protected. By the time they returned home, the sun had set completely and the city lights twinkled outside. The park had returned to quiet, but the impact of their actions lingered. The girl and her parents had been kept safe. A potential danger had been neutralized, and the memory of that day would stay with them forever. For The Rock and Cena, it was a reminder of the power of vigilance, kindness, and human-centered action. It was a day that began as a simple outing and ended as a moment of quiet heroism, one that changed a life and reaffirmed the value of paying attention, caring, and acting with courage whenever it mattered most. Cake and Cena, a silent thank you, before turning back to her parents. After confirming that the girl was safely reunited with her family, The Rock and Cena continued through the park, blending back into the crowd. They walked quietly, reflecting on the day's events. It had started as a simple outing, but their instincts and attention had made a real difference. The girl's quick trust and the way she responded to calm guidance reinforced how important empathy and careful action could be in moments of potential danger. The remainder of the day passed with rides, laughter, and enjoying the park's attractions. The Rock and Cena engaged with the crowd, smiled at children, and joined in the fun without drawing excessive attention. But underneath the carefree enjoyment, they carried the quiet satisfaction of knowing they had protected someone vulnerable. The memory of the girl's relieved smile stayed with them, a reminder of the importance of vigilance and the power of quiet intervention. Even as the sun began to set and the park lights flickered on, the lesson of the day lingered. Heroism didn't have to be loud or celebrated. Sometimes it was about paying attention, acting decisively, and showing kindness in a moment when someone needed it most. The Rock and John Cena had provided safety, reassurance, and calm for a child who had been frightened and alone. That was a moment that mattered, and it was a story that would stay with them long after the rides were over and the park emptied. The girl and her parents walked away, their hands intertwined and their faces marked by relief and gratitude. Though The Rock and Cena were just another part of the crowd now, their presence had created a ripple of safety and trust that made a lasting impact. The day, full of laughter and fun, had also been a day of quiet heroism, a day when instincts, courage, and care converged to protect the vulnerable. The Rock and Cena continued on, knowing that even in moments of leisure, being alert and compassionate could change someone's life. The girl's parents arrived moments later, running toward her with obvious worry and panic. The girl's eyes lit up and she ran into their arms, tears streaming down her cheeks. The parents hugged her tightly, checking to make sure she was unharmed. The Rock and Cena stayed in the background, giving the family space but keeping a watchful eye on the man, who had now drifted back into the crowd, clearly discouraged by their intervention. The parents looked around, trying to spot the two men who had helped protect their daughter, but The Rock and Cena blended into the crowd, quietly satisfied. The girl waved shyly, a mixture of relief and gratitude on her face, and the parents mouthed their thanks. It was a small, private acknowledgement that didn't draw attention from the larger crowd, but meant the world to the girl and her family. After ensuring that the girl was safe and reunited, The Rock and Cena continued their walk through the park, now more relaxed but still alert. They talked quietly about the incident, acknowledging that instinct, observation, and calm action had made all the difference. The girl's quick trust and the way she responded to reassurance reminded them of how important it was to approach such situations with care and empathy. The day continued, filled with rides, laughter, and the sights and sounds of the park. But for The Rock and John Cena, there was a quiet satisfaction that lingered throughout the afternoon. They had witnessed fear, stepped in with courage, and ensured safety without creating panic. Their presence had changed the outcome for a young girl and her family, and that was a memory that would stay with them long after the fun of the day ended. Even as they left the park later that evening, the memory of the girl's relieved smile stayed with them. It was a reminder that heroism doesn't always have to be loud or dramatic. Sometimes the quiet, careful actions of attentive people could make the biggest difference. They had protected a child, given peace to worried parents, and done so with patience, strategy, and heart. It was the kind of real-life moment that stayed with a person, the kind that reminded them why being aware, compassionate, and brave mattered in the world. Arl, asking her simple questions about where she lived, if she was visiting the park with anyone, and if she remembered her parents' faces. She answered in whispers, clearly scared but beginning to trust them. Each small detail confirmed that she had been alone and vulnerable, and the man had likely been trying to take advantage of her moment of fear. The crowd of families, couples, and children became a natural shield. The Rock and Cena maneuvered through it strategically, making sure the girl remained protected, They were aware of security cameras, nearby employees, and the importance of staying calm. Any sudden panic could have caused a scene, drawing attention to the girl's distress or alarming the stranger. The man finally realized his attempts to control the situation were failing. He glanced around nervously, noticing the Rock's imposing figure and Cena's confident stance. For a moment he hesitated, weighing his options. The presence of the two men made it clear that further action would be risky. The Rock didn't speak aggressively. He simply walked with purpose, exuding strength and calm. Cena mirrored this approach, ready to step in if the man tried anything. They guided the girl toward a busier section of the park, where families and security personnel were more visible. The girl's grip on the Rock's hand relaxed slightly as she saw familiar faces around her, sensing that help was close. Cena kept the man occupied with casual conversation, steering him away from the girl without confrontation. This strategic approach minimized fear and maximized safety. Finally, they spotted a security station nearby, with uniformed staff monitoring the area. The Rock and Cena approached the officers, explaining the situation calmly and pointing to the girl. The officers immediately understood and stepped forward, ready to take over. The girl's parents were not far behind, frantically searching the park. The relief on the girl's face as she was reunited with them was immeasurable. The Rock and Cena watched from a short distance, satisfied that their quick thinking and careful actions had prevented a potential tragedy. The girl waved shyly at them, gratitude shining in her eyes before running into her parents' arms. The Rock and Cena smiled at each other, knowing that in a crowded, busy amusement park, vigilance, instinct, and calm action had made all the difference. They continued their day, blending back into the lively crowd, carrying with them the quiet satisfaction of having made a real impact. It was a reminder that even in the midst of fun and laughter, paying attention to the small signs, trusting instincts, and acting with courage could protect those who needed it most. The day was no longer just a break from work. It was a day where two heroes quietly ensured a child's safety and gave her family peace of mind. Their actions would remain unnoticed by most, but for the girl and her family, the presence of The Rock and John Cena had been nothing short of life-changing.